A lot of good questions for Ole Miss. Coming up, we got my guy, Stephen Willis of the LockedOn Ole Miss podcast. Should be your first choice for all things Ole Miss. Let's go ahead and bring Stephen in on the boxes. My good friend, how are you doing, sir? Are you excited for football season?
Man, it is awesome because now that camp has started, you're no longer talking about what could happen. You're talking about what did happen, even if they are in shirts and shorts, and now you're experts on everything that's going to happen going forward. But I am excited that fall camp is underway, and this is going to be a fun year, I think, for the Rebels.
All right, and you mentioned, gotta look. Everybody thinks they're an expert on all things, whatever their college football program is. We know you are the expert, so let's kind of dive in some of the big topics that will face Ole Miss this year. Kiffin says it's a good thing that people are asking why Ole Miss isn't necessarily in the top 10 or so of teams that should be in the college football playoff. In your opinion, should there be more noise around this Ole Miss roster than maybe it was a year ago?
I think that everybody needs to realize that this is one of the more talented rosters that Ole Miss has ever had. And just because last year was a 12-0 roster, and if you look at the NFL draft and the players that were around, the All-Americans and things like that, it kind of pans out. But that doesn't mean that this is a bad roster because those first-round picks are gone. This roster is set up in a position to where Ole Miss can be pretty good, but Ole Miss will need some breaks this year. Last year, I like to say Ole Miss had a 12-0 roster, and they went 9-3 with it. This year, if they take a step back, it's still probably a 10-11 win roster, not quite as talented and top-end heavy as last year.
And Kiffin said he wants this team to be more blue-collar when we spoke to him earlier this week. What exactly does blue-collar mean for this team, and in what ways are you seeing them going to make more of that approach?
They're going to hit a little bit more than fall camp. They had a kinder, gentler fall camp last year whenever they had a bunch of stars going through. And in my opinion, it kind of bit them a little bit whenever they got to the Kentucky game. They kind of got out-physicaled, out-toughed in that game. Lane Kiffin is trying to instill the toughness that is needed to win these one-score games. Ole Miss went 0-3 in one-score games a year ago. Whenever things went well, they were front runners. But whenever things got challenging, they usually lost the ball game. They're trying to figure out how to get tougher, the blue-collar mindset. They're going to go to work every single day. They're going to try and out-claw you, out-scratch, out-tough you in a football game. And that's kind of what I think Lane Kiffin means by blue-collar attitude. It's going to be interesting to see if they're going to be able to pull that off because this year's schedule, to me, is probably a little bit easier than last year's schedule. Now, the game at Georgia and the game at Norman, they're both going to be difficult, but 9 games inside the state of Mississippi. 2 of your SEC road games are at Kentucky and at Mississippi State. I mean, the schedule sets up probably better than last year for a run.
Yeah, home against Arkansas, home against Tulane, who, those who are Memphis Tiger fans as well or keep up with the American, know Tulane is not necessarily any slouch. You get LSU at home this year, Washington State, Wazoo at home as well. But a lot of the hopes and dreams of Rebel Nation land on the shoulders of Austin Simmons this year. We know he is coming in after Jackson Dart had basically rewrote the record books. How much confidence do you have, Stephen, that Austin Simmons can pick up where Dart left off and get the Rebels into the college football playoff?
I think it's going to be important for Austin Simmons to not try and be Jackson Dart because they are two different quarterbacks. If you want a comp, kind of, it's Mac Jones kind of, Tua Tagovailoa, Alabama 2019, 2020. That level of quarterback play is the way it's going to look. You're not going to see as much RPO action. You're not going to see as much quarterback running the football. Lane Kiffin even mentioned the fact that he doesn't expect Austin to run very often. So they're going to be different. It's going to be interesting to see what Lane Kiffin does with a true pocket passer, if this is absolutely true, and that's the way he's thinking. If you have a true pocket passer, does he go back and revert to his days at USC with Norm Chow, the Matt Leinart stuff? Will it look more like Matt Corral? How will the offense look? Even if you go back to Tennessee in that one year, Jonathan Crompton, what they do. The quarterbacks and the offenses change based on personnel. Lane Kiffin is known for doing that. I'm curious to seeing what version of the offense he instills in Austin Simmons.
All right, let's jump into some of these sound bites that we've got. We got a chance to talk to several of the players on the first day of camp. One thing that Lane Kiffin acknowledged and mentioned really at SEC Media Days more than on earlier this week was that the running game was going to have to be better. They brought in a ton of transfers. They got Logan Diggs coming back from LSU. Here's what they had to say about healthy competition in the running backs room.
It's only one ball at the end of the day. It's only going to be one ball. So why am I going to let him go harder than me because I want the ball, he want the ball, we both want the ball, but what's going to separate us from, who going to get it or not?
We all bring something different to the table, and we all give each other free game. Like, I may be good at something you're not, but I'm willing to sit here and tell you something and give you a different outlook on something. And vice versa, they're willing to tell me something, they give me a different outlook on something. So it's been a friendly competition.
So Logan Diggs actually was with the team in 2024, was kind of rehabbing an injury most of that year. They thought he potentially could be a factor there towards the end of the year. Damian Taylor transfers in from Troy. There's a couple other running backs in that room that are gonna, make some noise for their own share of the carries there. Will the running back room, in your opinion, be improved, and could it contribute to more of that blue collar attitude that we were talking about before?
Yes, I think the running back room will be improved, and that's because after Quinshon Judkins left Ole Miss last year, I think they panicked a little bit. Just looking what's going on, they started taking commitments from different transfers in there, and they didn't hit on any of them. Nothing against the player or anything like that. It just didn't work out. This year has been much more thoughtful in the way that they went after the running back room. You have Logan Diggs, who's going to be about 18 months post an injury to his ACL. He should be healthy. He's going without a brace. He has a sleeve on. You have Keywan Lacey, who they absolutely love as the explosive type running back for their offense. He is the guy you get into space. Then you have Damian Taylor and Shakai Mills-Knight, true freshman from the Baylor school. He has a chance to be a true thumper in this offense, depending on how fall camp goes.
Yeah, when I had my sit down with Logan, he talked a lot about being able to just kind of step back and watch. And he described kind of a lot of miscommunication, things like that was going on in that running back room between them, the quarterback, the offensive line, those kind of things. And I think if the Rebels can clean a lot of that up, as well as kind of adopting more of that blue collar attitude, that could be the difference in a couple of one-score games. Talk about the receivers now. Caden Lee is the presumed wide receiver one. Obviously was with the team a lot last year. Was kind of the wide receiver three. But will someone else challenge him for that top receiver spot? Stribling, maybe?
Yeah, Deshaun Stribling. We did our LockedOn top 100 college football players. He came in at number 85 on that list. I do think Caden Lee, he has a chance to lead the entire SEC in receptions. I think the work that he does with Austin Simmons, they're friends. They have that connection. It's real similar to the one that Matt Corral had with Elijah Moore back in 2000. I think Lane Kiffin knows how to work with that, so you'll see Caden Lee do that. Deshaun Stribling, he was clocked at 21 miles an hour just recently, actually. And this is the best wide receiver unit that Ole Miss has had under Lane Kiffin in Oxford. And that there's no Trey Harris in this room. Deshaun Stribling is very, very good. But top to bottom, Harrison Wallace III on the other side of the field, and Traylon Ray and Deuce Alexander, and then the freshman class of Caleb Cunningham, who has a chance to be an absolute star of what's going on. This unit is 8-9 wide receivers deep, and Ole Miss traditionally has not substituted very often at the wide receiver position. So this is one of the things we need to keep an eye on, because there's enough talent to where they should probably be on the field. I think Caden Lee is going to be the alpha dog, but I think you're going to see him line up on the same side as Deshaun Stribling to prevent double teams, and they're kind of going to go to work, if that makes any sense.
That is very high praise to say it's the best receiver room that Lane Kiffin's had when he had 3 receivers go to the NFL last year. I hear what you're saying, though, especially Caden Lee. Even if he is not necessarily the deep threat, I can see him being the security blanket in a way where you're in a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 situation. Austin Simmons is going to be looking for him in terms of safety and security and moving the chains in a lot of ways. Let's talk about the defense. Was one of the most staunch defense in the country last year. One of the best sacking defenses last year. But again, kind of the theme, lost a lot of talent. We're talking about 8 total players on the Rebels that went to the NFL. One of them, Walter Nolan. You lose J.J. Pegues. This defense feels they might be just a tad bit underrated. Take a listen.
I definitely feel like we got underrated. You know, we got a lot of, we're a young group of guys. Definitely, we lost a lot last year, so everybody knows, underrated us, but we definitely got a great group of guys that are just ready to go to work.
Sure, for sure. I feel like definitely with all those guys leaving, I feel like everybody feel like, we just fell off and don't have nobody to replace it, or the returning guys not going to get the job done. But definitely, nothing but fire to the field.
So that's Centurion Perkins and TJ Daugherty there. They say the defense is underrated. Steven, do you agree? Underrated, overrated, rated just about the right way?
I think they are a little bit underrated, honestly, but not necessarily in the way that you think of, because last year was the best defense potentially in school history. And so you're not going to hit that level. So you're obviously going to take a little bit of a step back. And when you look at 8 starters going on to the next level, Trey Amos is going to probably start in Washington, and you look at Walter Nolan and Princely and Monmiel and Chris Paul. I mean, there's NFL players all over the place that they lost. It's natural to assume that there's a little bit of a step back, but on the famous Georgia play a year ago to where every defender for Ole Miss got into the backfield, it was Xavion Harris that led the charge on that one. Jam Brown and William Eccles both made a freshman All-American team. You have 5 stars in Cam Franklin and Deshaun Womack. You have Prince Will Amon-Mielen lining up on the other side. And, of course, TJ Daugherty coming back, who was the green dot a year ago, and Centurion Perkins, who he's the leading returning sack man in the entire Southeastern Conference. The front 7 for Ole Miss is going to be pretty good. There's not a Walter Nolan in this unit, so don't expect a Walter Nolan. But if they just do their job, they have enough talent to be really good and really salty. The back end of that defense is where I'm concerned, honestly. The safeties position, Jalen Braxton moved back into safety in the first practice. They do like Ricky Fletcher. They do like the other corners they have. Safety is the competition to keep an eye on in this camp.
Yeah, it certainly was not the strong suit, I would say, of Ole Miss last year. It was definitely their front 7. I think the front 7 will kind of be the strong suit again for this iteration of the Ole Miss Rebels. As we go into the fall, we know August 30th is the first game of the year at home against Georgia State. Steven, give me your record prediction for this year.
The record that we're doing on LockedOn Ole Miss, we did our W's and L's back in the first part of July, and we came up with 10-2. And the reason we did that is because Ole Miss doesn't leave the state of Mississippi for 9 games. There's 9 games inside the state of Mississippi. Then you go to Kentucky as one of your road games. Now, the game in Norman and the game in Athens, that's going to be that's a bear, and they're back to back. You have Georgia, Oklahoma, and South Carolina back to back to back. There could be some problems there. LSU and Oxford could be some problems. But Lane Kiffin historically has figured out a way to win games in Oxford. So the road games are going to be the ones you look at of what's going to happen here. Getting Florida at home, getting LSU at home, that's a win to me. I think the Tulane game could be a little bit of a trap, especially right before LSU. And Mississippi State is always a weird game. It just always is. But if everything goes chalk, that's about chalk for this season, about 10-2, I think.
10-2, all right. They went 9-3 in the regular season last year, ended the year 10-3 with a win in the Gator Bowl. Steven Willis, host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Steve-O, tell the folks where they can find you.
You can find me on YouTube at Locked On Ole Miss or wherever you get your podcast. And occasionally I'll pop in here on the 24th floor to drop a little bit of knowledge as well. But if you want to catch us on Twitter, you can catch me at the Steven Willis, and I'm all over social as Locked On Ole Miss. So if you want to come have a good time following Ole Miss sports, I'm your guy.